Well, good morning. It's Tuesday, and we have Rakesh. Rakesh, how are you?
I'm well. Good evening here in Hong Kong.
Okay. Well, since we only have two of us, I will do the introductions. Hi, I'm Bill Trezevant. I'm the IBM TV White House correspondent. And Rakesh, please tell our audience about yourself.
Yes, I'm Rakesh Krishnan. I work from Hong Kong, running a couple of educational online websites in basically online education, math and science, and English. That's
Fantastic.
what I do, apart from having these lovely chats on IBM TV.
Well, you're always welcome, and we love your input, and we love having you here. But I know that our viewers are waiting, so why don't we just begin this hour with the Washington reports from IBM TV?
Look forward to that.
Okay. So let me. From IBM TV, International Broadcast Media, this is your report from Washington. There are 49 days left until the presidential election. Today, Trump will be hosting Israel, the UAE, and Bahrain at the White House for the signing of diplomatic deals between the three nations. Trump is touting this as peace in the Middle East, even though these nations were never at war. Next, the Trump administration can end humanitarian protections that have allowed hundreds of thousands of people from El Salvador, Nicaragua, Haiti, and the Sudan to remain in the United States, a divided appeals court ruled on Monday. An appeal of this ruling is expected. On the money trail, Monday, the Trump campaign canceled at least $2.5 million worth of advertising that was planned for Iowa, Ohio, and Nevada. This comes on the heels of canceled ads in those states, as well as in Arizona, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, and Michigan, all in a further sign of the Trump campaign's dwindling cash balance. For his part, Joe Biden is making his first trip to Florida as a Democratic presidential nominee. Biden will hold a roundtable with veterans in Tampa before marking Hispanic Heritage Month with an event in Kissimmee near Orlando. The visit comes as some Democrats worry that Biden's standing among Hispanics is slipping in a state where they make up nearly 1/5 of the eligible voters. On the money trail with Biden, after filling up the bank account with $364 million in August, Biden is pouring tens of millions of dollars into ads airing in battleground states. The focus of the new ads are competent leadership, highlighting Trump's failures for the last year marked by COVID, social unrest, and economic decline. In other news, from the not so fast column, the government could still shut down. There is a new fight over the continued funding of the government. At issue is the length of the proposed continuing resolution. Republicans prefer a CR that runs only through December. That could give them more power to push their own priorities if they were to lose control of the White House in November. Democrats want the CR to run through January so that a potential Joe Biden administration could work with them on their priorities. Also, we may have a heartbeat. Bloomberg reports today that a 50-member group of House Democrats and Republicans will release a $1.52 trillion COVID relief stimulus plan Tuesday in a long-shot attempt to break a months-long decade on providing relief to the pandemic-battered U.S. economy. The Problem Solvers Caucus plan is to be announced at an 11 a.m. news conference and has been developed for weeks with the knowledge of the White House and leadership from both parties. Next, dining out may not be as safe as we once thought. A new report by the Center for Disease Control states that people who dined out recently were twice as likely to test positive for the COVID-19 virus. Dr. Anthony Fauci said he won't be eating at restaurants either indoors or outdoors. And in a further sign of the year that is 2020, Taco Bell will be serving its own branded wine in Canada. In business, global stock markets were mixed Tuesday after Wall Street rose on a flurry of corporate deals and China's economic activity improved. London opened higher while Shanghai and Hong Kong gained. Tokyo declined and Frankfurt opened lower. U.S. stock futures also gained. Finally, the current COVID death toll from Johns Hopkins University is over 194,536 American souls lost and 928,576 global souls lost with no end in sight. That is your report for this day, September 15, 2020, from IBM TV, International Broadcast Media, smart television for a smarter global community, from dictatorships to democracies around the world. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. I'm Bill Trezevant. Well, Well,
Hi, Sasha.
Hello,
quite a
how are
lot.
you?
But first we go. Let's say hello to
Thank
Alexander
you.
Starr or Sasha, who on IBM TV has a couple of shows. One is Investing with Sasha, and then the other is Chess with Sasha. Isn't that right, Sasha? How are
Yes,
you?
very well. How are you doing? You had a wonderful presentation as
Well,
always.
there's a lot of news going on today, but we shall see. But let's start by finding out around the world. I guess, Rakesh, let me start with you. I read a report that the Trump administration is issuing a travel advisory for Americans traveling to Hong Kong and China because of the law that Hong Kong passed in June. And I think the travel advisory said, quote, that it's dangerous because you can be subject to arbitrary arrests and uh, arbitrary usage of local laws. What's actually going on in Hong Kong that we should
Well,
be worried about?
yeah, it's from my I've been here the last 7 years, and I've not found any change in the last since the law has been passed. Um, I I see criticism of the government in posters around the place, but I don't see anybody getting arrested, on the roads. I know that here and there you have some thing, but I'm sort of in a little corner of Hong Kong, the new territories. So I'm really not that, I can say, politically aware of what's happening in the heart of Hong Kong, which is Kowloon and the Hong Kong Island itself. In terms of if you come as a tourist, I don't think there should be any issue because I know many Americans who are staying here,
Okay.
and they're not making any plans to leave.
Okay.
And they have jobs here. They're not making any plans to leave. Irish people, no plans to leave. I'm part of a group which is the Mac users group in Hong Kong.
Uh-huh.
People from different nationalities, England, USA, Ireland, Italy. Nobody is planning to leave.
So this could just be a mirage, just a red herring thrown up by the Trump administration to kind of get everybody riled up.
He's known for posturing, so we know that. Everybody knows that. So
Okay.
that's all right. It's in Hong Kong, we are not experiencing any sort of difficulties.
Okay. Now I'd like to, speaking of posturing, Sasha, if I may, since you are a resident expert on Russia, although you're in Canada, a couple of different things. There was a meeting between the president of Belarusia and Putin, and I believe Putin indicated that Russia was going to quote unquote stay out of the domestic affairs. Now, on the one hand, I find that interesting because clearly they're involved in American affairs. But what can you tell us about that meeting and what it may mean to the larger world?
Well, I mean that for Russia, participating in American affairs way more interesting than in Belarusian affairs, and it's more beneficial for Putin to be sort of. He's becoming so large figure in international politics that he is larger than Pope of the Catholic Church or United Nations, all put together, NATO and all other things. So he feels like he is trying to make sure that there is a peace, or everybody is respecting everybody, and if somebody is going out of line, he is there to say that it's not nice. Please,
So
be
he's there.
nice.
Yeah, right.
So
Imagine that. Putin, the peacemaker, huh?
On 21st of September, I think he will become one, and at least for a day. How about that?
That's right, because we are the sponsors of the United Nations International Peace Day,
Yeah,
coming up on September 21st, 2020, and we encourage all of our users. And I believe we have. Can we just roll that program piece now, and then we'll come back to the Peace Day.
absolutely.
Absolutely. So let's go to the videotape.
peace? What does it mean to me?
I am a big proponent of world peace.
Peace is compassion, empathy, understanding.
What are you willing to do for peace?
Peace is
the ability to see the positive side of every experience and realize that no matter what happens, it helps you grow to become the best version of you.
Peace means serenity to me. When I love myself more, I can love others better.
Peace is the highest goal of our species.
Wow, gentlemen, that was fantastic. What do you guys think, Rakesh?
Yeah, having lived in Rwanda when it went through a lot of civil unrest, I cannot but appreciate the value of peace. Very often when you live in a country which is peaceful, you don't realize how important peace is. But when you live in a situation where you don't know where the riot will start around the corner, and you could be seriously injured or even killed, then you start really appreciating the value of peace. When you see children suffering and you're unable to help them, even though you're not from the same country, you appreciate the value of peace. When you see houses burning and you're unable to help, houses which people have spent almost a year's salary to build, simple houses, not fancy palaces, and those are burning, then you feel the pain of those people who work with you. And peace is something which is of greatest value to the poor, because they have to rise, and to rise up, they need peace.
Right. In order to achieve.
Certainly. War only benefits the rich. Civil unrest benefits the rich.
And Sasha, you've lived a long time. I guess you qualify here as one of our statesmen. And what are your views, having witnessed a great deal of history and having being somewhat of an expert in Russian history?
Okay, let me tell you that I was born in a country that lost 27 million people in the Second World War. It lost probably the same number of people, however, a lot of people believe that a much greater number to Stalin's purchase in the 30s. So why would I be even asked the question whether I'm for peace or for war? However, as we all know, the humankind, the Homo sapiens, are the most aggressive species in this world. They prevailed and destroyed 5 other sapiens that existed, probably give or take 100, 200,000 years ago. They prevailed and extinct many animals, many species, many actually those that are still alive are only domesticated animals which people consume for their food needs. So the war is a natural phenomena of human beings. They have to be at war. The peace is something very unnatural, very foreign substance for humankind. On the other hand, we have 364 days of war in this world. Let's have one day of peace, and that I support.
Okay. Yes, it is interesting times, and there's that old saying, that Asian saying, "May you live in interesting times." We certainly are, and we've got a lot on our plate today. First, this notion of peace, I think, is uplifting, and it's one we should focus on and certainly guide our conversations for today. And just to add, we there have been no reports yet, but I believe that's a good sign coming out of Afghanistan, where the Taliban and the Afghan government are negotiating for peace. There have been no new reports of divisive behavior or allegations of wrongdoing between China and India along their disputed border. So that's a good sign. We certainly have Trump with the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain going to the White House to sign a diplomatic treaty with Israel. Isn't all of that a positive sign for us, Rakesh?
I think it's positive that, areas where there have been conflict or the potential for conflict, countries are making a conscious effort to avoid conflict, and where I think at one stage it sort of triggers. There's a level of fatigue amongst the populations.
Yeah, do you think that with everything that's gone on in this year, 2020, that people are just tired, Rakesh?
Yes. Not only have they got to fight with an invisible foe, why add a visible foe to that? It's quite tragic that we still have countries. The fact that we still have countries, which means we've still got the tribal construct in our heads, which is what triggers off so much of aggression when we have reached a level of population where peace is a must. It is not an option. It is a must, because if the world has to survive, we need to have cooperation. Otherwise, as a species, we are doomed. Our own aggression will turn back to bite us.
Okay, well, Sasha, let me ask you about that. Rakesh, if I hear you correctly, you're saying that essentially, at the end of the day, when we will achieve peace, when we are forced into it because there is no other choice in order to survive. Did I hear you correctly, Rakesh?
You are right. We actually already are in that situation, but not many of us have realized it. Okay. We see how easily hatred finds a hold. Mm-hmm. It is because there is a hidden fear that we will not have enough resources to live our life out comfortably around the world. And so you will find dominant communities like, in whichever country, a dominant community, whether it's basis of religion or color of skin or whatever, dominant communities are feeling threatened. That is a sign of fear. That fear comes from the fact that everybody knows we have limited resources, and there's a chance that we may not get those resources. We may not be able to live as comfortably as we are used to, or we were used to while growing up.
Okay. Now, Sasha, what do you think of the concept or the notion that, first, that we as a species will, only when it's the option in order to survive, that we will reach peace, and that prior to that, unless we're forced into it, we really, just as a species, won't get there. What do you think of that idea?
Well, first of all, let's be very specific what we are discussing. I agree with Rakesh, but there is a flaw in his suggestion that somehow I agree with limited resources concept, but how and why peace would help to stretch these resources compared to war. In fact, the opposite might be true, that the war will obviously, I'm trying to find the right nice word, will probably, can't do that. So unfortunately will disintegrate a few million people here and there, and therefore those resources which are still limited, but they would be as a result maybe not so limited, and therefore the remaining people, whoever will remain, they will enjoy perhaps a better opportunities as to fulfill their needs than otherwise. Okay, But there is yet another thing is that, as you know, war is continuation of politics. So sometimes you negotiate and you're doing all the nice things, and somehow it just doesn't work, doesn't go anywhere. So when you are unhappy with somebody, you declare the war, as did Republic of Ireland against Soviet Union in the 60s.
Right.
You know the story. I'm not going to repeat that. And but there are some other countries which are have about equal amount of tanks and airplanes, but even more so if one country has many more planes and tanks. So that country obviously would say, well, we would like you to do so and so. Oh, never mind if that country also has nuclear arms and the other country doesn't. Have you ever heard about any country that has nuclear arms losing a war? I never heard about that. Have you?
Actually, Sasha, I have, if you don't mind. I mean,
Yeah.
Vietnam, America in Vietnam, we had nuclear weapons, and we didn't exactly win that war. So there you go. You can have nuclear weapons and still lose the war.
Yeah, okay, you got me here. I agree with you, but we all know that it wasn't a conventional war. It wasn't a war that America at all cost really wanted to win. It was basically a political show that
Well,
we can.
no, actually, I think it was more than that, Sasha, because I think you're hitting on a point that says this, that maybe there is a line that people in the world just know that we cannot cross. And that is to say, after the United States used the nuclear weapons in 1945, that the world saw such devastation that right now the mere thought of actually using it stops everybody. Because it seems to be that case only because every single time the superpowers have come to the edge of using nuclear weapons, they haven't because of the devastation. And, or not that there haven't been proponents, because there were proponents during the Vietnam War advocating that Lyndon should, and then later Nixon should drop nuclear weapons, but they didn't. So don't you think there's a worldwide psychological barrier to the actual use of nuclear weapons embedded in all of us?
I think it's to do with mutual assured destruction.
Yeah.
When you know that everybody, there's not going to be any survivor. Nobody's going to be any rich.
No, I understand. And Rakesh, let me just try to, drill down on that. The theory of mutually assured destruction, which is what the superpowers had been working under for such a long time, doesn't work when you have multi nations with atomic capability. So like China and India could get into an exchange, a nuclear exchange.
Britain, France, so many people have got nuclear weapons. There is nobody is going berserk.
So I'm asking fundamentally, do you believe that there's this unwritten rule across the globe that says you can threaten nuclear weapons because you've got them, but somehow there's just, that's a line that nobody will cross? Rakesh, do you think that's embedded?
It's as long as your leaders are sane. Our leaders now, today, are perilously close to insane.
Okay. Well, as a lot of people have that view. Sasha, do you think that's the case, that they won't be used unless our leaders lose it?
Well, first of all, thanks to the United States that they had these bombs dropped in 1945, because that was a demonstration of U.S. power at the time. But more importantly, it showed consequences of further escalation in nuclear race. And although there was one exception, 1962, a Cuban crisis,
right,
where the war was almost inevitable. However, it became also a poker game between Kennedy and then Khrushchev. And Kennedy won that poker game, and Khrushchev had to retreat from Cuba.
Yes, but Sasha, in that game, America did not know at the time that Russia had deployed what they call "quote unquote" battlefield nukes. in case there was an American invasion. So America didn't know that at the time. And yet, even though the commanders on the ground in Cuba were authorized to use battlefield nuclear weapons, ostensibly a smaller yield on those weapons, they still weren't used. And so I guess I'm getting to the fundamental question, which is, Sasha, do you think that there's an unwritten rule around the world that is, just protecting us, that says that nobody's going to use a nuclear weapon?
Well, all kind of rules, including unwritten rules, sometimes get broken, as you know. So let me state this. Now, see, the bombs were dropped in 1945. Now we have 2020. So there are a lot of, especially younger people, who don't really remember what's happened in 1945. Now, sometimes they even arguing that it was over-exaggeration and it wasn't really that horrible. And then they're comparing that the bombs which were dropped, for example, on Dresden, they were much more devastating than those on Japan. So they say, yeah, okay, of course, war is not a nice thing, and some people will die sooner or later. So it wasn't such a devastation. In fact, immediate first strike, devastating first strike, in fact, can resolve all these problems, because the other side will not be able to retaliate, or the retaliation will be.
No. You see, that's what some hardline advocates on all sides in all countries. There's always that group that will advocate that, but the consequences of that would be so much material would be released into the atmosphere that it would block out the sun, therefore killing all vegetation. So even though it would wipe out the other side, the side that initiated it would ultimately starve to death.
Well, those people who will die from the nuclear strike, they don't care much about vegetation. What do you think?
Okay.
Yeah, but apart from that, you have the nuclear triad. So you could have, land-based missiles hitting out at one another. You could go there, but the other side would have planes that would be that are not affected by your first strike, that would hit you. There would be submarines, which you cannot identify, which would do a retaliatory attack. You could have, now you have drone submarines fitted with nuclear missiles. So no, there are no winners. Absolutely. If this starts, roll the dice and we're all dead.
Here is really what's happened. I'd like to observe just 1 sec.
Okay.
That remember what's happened in Reagan's time. That United States really exhausted Soviet Union by escalation, the Star Wars, all kinds of stuff. Most of it was gimmick anyway, but it was perceived as a reality or so on. And Soviet Union had to spend enormous amount of money to stay in a race. The oil dropped down to next to nothing, $8 a barrel or something. So obviously, all that led to collapse of Soviet Union.
Right.
Okay. It wasn't really Gorbachev, whom I admire and who did a lot of great things, but he was forced to do many of those things. It's not that he invented that and he wanted to do it, really. He had to. Okay. So now I'm afraid the opposite situation is happening. Now is a huge arm race between Russia and the United States is playing against United States interests, because Russia, they can starve their own people, or they can take them into gulags and still have quite formidable military capacities. And United States is spending a huge amounts of money to not even build military, just to keep their military so it will retaliate. And plus, as we know, they're building new kind of arms, and Trump said that he had some surprises in his sleeve or so on. So that is, and considering economic situation of United States, I think that now it's all playing against United States interests, really.
Okay.
Another thing is the United States budget, though it is more than the next 16 countries all put together, the defense budget, 51% of that budget is spent on personnel. It's just salaries. It is not spent on armament. So if you look at that, you have, it is definitely not a happy situation for the United States. But does anybody win? My question is, does anybody win? Nobody wins. One fighter plane can feed 3 African countries.
Okay. Well,
if you look at
No. Let me just kind of, put some guidelines on this road here. The United States is not going to be worried about feeding Africa in giving away a plane just to feed 3 nations in Africa. I certainly understand the argument, but that's not going to be the reality. We're not just going to do that. So, I hear your argument.
It's not just the United States. Any country, whichever country makes a weapon which is that powerful, it bleeds that country. And this is stuff that nobody can afford. How long can the insanity last?
Well, I don't know. That's a good question. Sasha, you seem to be saying that the insanity will last until the economy of the various countries are completely broken, or not broken, but becomes unsustainable, given internal costs, which if I heard you correctly, in the Soviet Union, they could maintain their military buildup because they are not worried so much about domestic tranquility, because they will rule with authority and wipe out dissension. So you're suggesting that they have a longer capacity, whereas in the United States, by expanding this, we will impinge on other parts of the economy, cause social unrest, and or destabilize our economy unless we lose the arms buildup. Correct, Sasha?
Yes, generally it's all correct. Rakesh, you had...
I have a point. I think when Gorbachev, sort of was rescued by Mr. Yeltsin, and Russia at that time was actively seeking engagement with the rest of the world, I think the United States, and particularly Mr. Reagan, blew it when they all that they did was sit on the sidelines and gloat at the Russian.
Rakesh, it was past Reagan. It was already Bush.
It was already
Bush older.
So they lost. They blew a chance to integrate Russia into the Western world, and which is funny because Russian people are originally Vikings.
Oh, okay.
Yes, they're originally Vikings, which is part of the West. So to me today, it still mystifies me that the whole of Western Russia are basically Viking stock, but they're still the object of hatred in the United States, and ludicrous hatred.
No, I don't think we here in the United States hate the Vikings. In fact, we named a football team after them. Up in Minnesota,
but you hate the Russians.
The Vikings. We love them. It's just a matter of communication.
No, not the Vikings. You hate the Russians. I'm not talking about the Vikings. They are of Viking stock. The Russians are of Viking stock.
Not necessarily so. Yes, there is a part. The part of Russians is a Viking stock. I agree with you. But then the other part is Mongols and Tatars and Finns and some other elements. So, in fact, Ukrainians are much more pure Viking stock than Russians. That's the main difference between them.
Well, you see, the Mongolians, the Vikings, they all got together and reached peace and then formed a new nation. So getting back to International Peace Day, we're setting aside now the issue of nuclear weapons and buildup because it appears to me, just as a matter of track record, that there is this unwritten rule that we're not going to unleash nuclear weapons. Although there's a very, very, very large asterisk to that. And that's what Sasha, you pointed out, being that the younger generation, once they have no memory of the consequences, and because those consequences to them, because they have no memory, seem so dim, they don't realize how big they are, which might mean that they're more inclined to use the weapons. That was your thought process, isn't that right?
But Bill, we all three of us were born well after the 1945 and the bombs were dropped in Japan. So we also practically we don't remember really what's happened then, but we know a lot from the movies, from books, from all other materials, really what's happened, and we are taking approach that it just cannot be repeated, regardless what. It just cannot be repeated. But what about again 1962 war? Then Khrushchev and Kennedy believed that it cannot be repeated.
Well,
Interesting, interesting.
well, maybe they won't. Rakesh wanted to jump in. Let's jump in, Rakesh.
Yeah. I think there's one thing that has happened that is good for our nations, and that is travel. People have traveled in the last five to 6 decades like they've never done before.
Uh-huh.
And when you travel, and today's Travel Tuesday,
Yes.
you tend to understand what you tend not to dehumanize the other country.
Uh-huh.
I remember the first time I met a Pakistani in India while I was traveling from one city to another.
Okay.
And I found him so likable. We were both chatting. I didn't know he was a Pakistani. They got to know during this travel on a train journey. And I found him so likable. My hatred for Pakistan, which was there till before that meeting, literally vanished.
Wow.
Of course, later on in my life, I met Pakistanis in other places. And as I've traveled to about 27, 28 different countries, I have begun to develop an understanding of different communities. And I think that what's happened to me, I mean, I've got no special talents. I'm sure that's being replicated in a million hearts of people who've traveled around the world and can feel the sense of a human species. Now, this is it's touched by my values, my experiences. So I cannot say that this is a global perception, but I'm hoping that this is a global perception.
Okay.
I know that there's been a lot of travel, except for the last 5-6 months because of COVID. But otherwise, I think travel has been a great hope for humanity. And at least in my mind, I hope it will help.
Listen, isn't that the fundamental issue, though, when all is said and done, that when we actually meet other people and without any preconceived notions, and then we talk, that we can find common ground? Sasha, even you have to admit that, right?
Yeah, I've traveled quite a lot and always enjoy to meet new people in the different countries, different cities. It's very valuable experience. And you see, I still feel uncomfortable with the whole concept of a peace. It's a great initiative, and of course, the peace is better than war. Even if you remember Tolstoy's War and Peace, who is the best and the most eloquent writer?
Because that's really War and Peace. It's so big.
Mm-hmm. Although, it's been suggested by many that Tolstoy stole the concept from Victor Hugo, from his great book, Les Miserables.
Okay.
So it's debatable. But you know what? I read both. And I'll tell you that, strangely enough, I enjoyed more Victor Hugo, especially his description of a battle in near Waterloo. It's unparalleled writing, and I think anything can exceed that.
That's interesting because it's so funny on such big issues that that I can't even believe that we're debating these days. War and peace. Sasha, you point out that the whole concept of war and peace in the story of the book was actually the product of a criminal enterprise. That is amazing. That's kind of like Rakesh. The other day, I found out here on IBM TV, remember Smarter Television for a Smarter Global Community, I found out that there was cheating in chess. Who knew that there was cheating in chess? And so, Sasha, if there's cheating in chess, Why can't there be cheating with War and Peace? That is just such a concept. But, I don't know. The guy that wrote War and Peace stole the idea. Amazing. Today's day, he'd have lawyers, but we'll see. So at the end of the day, though, I found personally traveling to be quite eye-opening. And I think you're right, Rakesh, at least in my personal experiences, it has been one that really opens your eyes. And once you see and touch and feel and listen and walk in their shoes, it really changes your opinion. So I'm wondering, don't you think that maybe we should be doing more of that these days rather than putting up walls and tariffs and fighting each other and keeping refugees out in the sea? What do you guys think about that?
Let me ask you a question, Bill. Have you traveled lately, last, say, 10, 20 years to France?
No, actually, I've never been to France. I did
want. Okay.
Okay.
I did.
I'll tell you something. Oh, you did. Have you traveled by train, let's see, from Nice to Paris?
Rakesh?
I traveled from Paris to Amsterdam.
Not sure. I was many times in both cities, but never traveled by train. But I traveled once from Geneva to Paris and once from Nice to Paris. And you know that each trip takes, say, about actually slightly less than 2 hours. Now, the distance between these cities is about the same as between Washington and Boston. If you take train from Washington to Boston, it will take you 7 hours.
That's right.
And I thought, how comes the richest, biggest, mightiest country in the world like United States has antiquated rail system, the airports, basically standards, third world countries. Because even if you would go to the airport in countries like, lately I've been in Buenos Aires, São Paulo, Brazil, or almost any city. I'm not even talking about places like Singapore. Okay, I don't want to get anybody envious about that. I was in Singapore airport, and this is I wouldn't even compare to anything. Hong Kong actually has a great airport, but how is that possible? That you're coming to the airports, any places in Europe, Paris, Amsterdam. U.S. looks like a third world country. That's all what I'm trying to say. It really does.
As the American on the show, I am wearing a very spiffy suit, and I'm looking good, not like a third world. You are quite correct that there has been a real lack of investment in the infrastructure in the United States. It's been delayed maintenance over time. And you're right. I wouldn't necessarily say a third world country. There are some airports that could certainly use upgrades. You're certainly correct with regard to the railway infrastructure. So yes, there is a great deal of work to be done in the United States, but a third world status, I don't necessarily.
It's slowly. It's getting there. It's deteriorating quite rapidly.
New York airport.
Okay, in case you were going. Go ahead.
If you go to the Rwandan airport in Kigali, you will find it slicker than your. I've been to your Washington airport, your New York airport, LaGuardia, and John F. Kennedy, and and the one in Chicago. These airports. I would tend to agree with Sasha. I was actually quite disappointed because it was the first time I was visiting the United States. This was way back in '95, and I was quite disappointed, to be honest.
Another thing, what I've noticed, for example, in Buenos Aires airport, it's so colorful, it's inviting, it's a pleasure to just be there for an hour, 2 hours, or whatever it takes. All beautiful cafes and restaurants, people, colors, music. In US, when you spend more than 15, 20 minutes, you get bored. It's horrible. It's not inviting. Everybody is not friendly, and you just feel, oh my God, how can I leave it?
That is not true. People are friendly, one, too. And
Really?
because here in America, we're about, just getting in and getting out. We're more on the functionality. And you guys are probably disappointed because you didn't fly into Newark. Now, Newark has a great airport.
Which one?
Newark, New Jersey. They have a great airport.
Isn't that the place where all the Indians are?
Probably.
That's being mischievous.
I know. I'm just kidding too. I'm probably going to get in trouble in Newark. So yes, I will admit that America has an infrastructure problem, but that is not necessarily the gauge on the entire U.S. because there are other countries that have failing infrastructures as well. I mean, I would offer and suggest this as as a premise: the amount of military spending around the globe to prepare for war has siphoned off from all of the domestic economies worldwide that money which could have been poured into education, infrastructure, and bettering of the citizens of the country's lives together. And we'd be a lot farther along towards international peace if they made that fundamental change in the allocation of their budgets. Now, just because the United States hasn't done it, and that's because other nations haven't done it, I mean, we're all in this cycle circling around doing the very things. But I'm going to ask you, if the world would take another look at their budget priorities and change it from defense to infrastructure and cooperating, would you think that would make a difference? Rakesh and then Sasha.
Okay, my first point that I'd like to react in reaction to your proposition was that I would add education to that list. Okay. I find it tragic that people whose mother tongue is supposed to be English, even people from the United Kingdom, cannot spell. They cannot spell their mother tongue properly. To me, that is criminal. In a world of information, ignorance is criminal. That's the first thing. Infrastructure, yes, that is the one point I agree with Mr. Trump. He is spot on about American infrastructure. He said that right at the beginning, and he was the one who used the word third world.
Yes.
He was the first guy who used that word. And but that's where I agree with him. And in terms of his economic policy prior to COVID, I was totally in agreement with him. What I didn't like about him was his trying to use majoritarianism. I'm opposed to majoritarianism anywhere in the world. In India, where Mr. Modi does the same thing, and in other parts of the world, there are several countries, there's too many to name. But I do think, yes, defense budgets are, again, a sign of our species-wide insanity. To spend 35 million on one fighter aircraft is the most ridiculous thing. When your own children are, so many children are suffering from lack of food. Mm-hmm. Teachers, if you listen to teachers who are speaking across the world, rich countries, poor countries, children come to class hungry. How do you expect them to study?
Right. No.
And this is not just in India. This is even in the OECD countries.
Mm-hmm.
And it's ridiculous that it's just like macho young, over 70-year-olds with the mindset of macho 17-year-olds trying to get the biggest motorbike when he doesn't have a decent pair of pants. That's the kind of analogy that comes to my head.
Okay.
It is just ridiculous. Well, and if we are to survive as a species, we'd better get this straightened out. We don't have too much time.
Okay. Sasha.
Okay. Let's see. I'm surprised that nobody mentioned the fact that the huge military contractors and companies such as General Dynamics, General Electric, and many others, Boeing and whatever, they feet of these government contracts, huge government contracts worth billions and billions of dollars. And this is a part of what you're going to do with all those companies and people who work there and so on. What they're going to sweep the streets or flip hamburgers, and what are you going to do with them? So it's almost like a circulation, which mentioned yesterday Professor Johnson. He said that this is a part of overall circulation. So yesterday we had one of those people from financial company who doesn't even sell stocks or bonds. I'm not sure actually what he's doing. The company employs 5,000 people, well-paid people for doing nothing. They're not doing anything at all. Don't you understand that?
Listen. First of all, that was a very colorful picture, and Rakis, that was a very colorful picture. But Sasha, your picture, is coloring just a little bit outside the lines, because it's a false choice to say that if the major companies that have military contracts with the U.S. government, if those were to be cut off, their only other choice would be to flip hamburgers. That's a false choice. Because when you are retooling the economy, the investments would go into infrastructure, which would be green jobs and tech jobs. And so those people with the skills that they were using in the military industrial complex would be easily transferable. So no, they wouldn't be necessarily flipping hamburgers. They would just have to retool and prepare for another industry. And so in that regard,
in theory, Bill,
you have to admit that, don't you?
In theory, you're right. But if you will take 1,000 people on the street and retool them, and you will probably put them through some employment programs or so on, very few people will find a gainful employment in a similar industry where they were before, or retooled industry, or the green industries or whatever. Most of these people will get severe packages, and they will be wise to somehow invest this money here and there and try to eke possible living. They will never, ever retain their status, whatever they had in General Dynamics and others.
Okay, well, that is a hopeful note, Sasha, but I'd like to hear from Rakesh. I'm going to get a second opinion on this one. Rakesh?
When I was a young boy, the best cars in the world were made in Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
Today, Detroit City is bankrupt. At least it was about 6 months ago. I don't know now. So, and I keep thinking, you have these wonderful trained people from the United States Army and Air Force and Navy and everything, all of whom are trained to a degree in operating complicated machinery. They have the discipline, but there's no industry to employ them. What does the United States make? At one time, I remember my father loved to have chic shaving equipment because it was made in the USA. He treasured that pack of blades and wouldn't allow anybody to use it. Even when I could use it, I developed a beard. So that was the status the United States held. You had that magic chutzpah, which nobody in Europe could match. And the Japanese were not even considered, and and what's happened now? I just wonder.
I think this, and quite frankly, because
you have 16 aircraft carriers and not even 16 oceans to deploy them in.
Well, that's because we like to make sure. Look, we like to make sure
admirals made a lot of money.
Make sure our block is safe. But here, I would rather put this spin on it. It's the world is what it is today because America stepped forward and made sure other countries were back on their feet after conflict, time and time and time again. And even with Vietnam, so that in that respect, the rise of other countries to compete is exactly the result of the American ethos of helping others in the end, rather than being a conquering nation with, like the old empires that were built. So in that regard, I don't necessarily see it as doom and gloom for the United States. It is
up
rather
to Richard Nixon.
Well, hang on.
After Richard Nixon.
After Richard Nixon?
After Richard Nixon, it became a scurrilous country, engineering coups in places and doing all sorts of triggering civil wars, like in Ukraine, and doing all sorts of mischievous things all over the world.
Look, the former Soviet Union and currently Russia and all of their cohorts are more responsible for spreading chaos and war around this world than the United States. The United States, we had, a couple of things, but that was back in the 60s. That was over, that's 60 years ago. Right now, we have a policy of enlightened engagement. I mean, we have treaties with all kinds of nations. Right now, we're only fighting with China, but that's only one nation. But Russia's out there taking the Ukraine peninsula, undermining the elections in Belarus.
The Maidan demonstrations that happened in Ukraine were so obviously CIA operations. So obviously.
Oh.
So obviously nobody's fooled about it anymore.
Now, Sacha, even you would admit that the CIA would not be effective in organizing protests anywhere near Russia. Am I right about that? Because Russia is so good on that point, right?
Russia was late in the game.
In fact, CIA invested $5 billion in organizing coup in Ukraine. And in fact, it was one of the best investments because it worked. It worked really a big time, and Ukraine actually defended its independence, although the price was high. First of all, Crimea now is part of Russia, and all the eastern region of Ukraine is a nowhere land, and actually nobody wants it. Ukraine doesn't want it because it has to rebuild all its infrastructure, destroy, and Russia doesn't want it because it will take even more liabilities. And now they got Crimea, which cannot handle, and Belarus is next in line. Russia really doesn't need all that garbage.
Look, that proves my point and disproves yours, Rakesh, that Russia is singularly responsible for more destabilizing activities around the globe than the United States. That's one. Two, China, with the Silk Road, is engaged in economic terrorism by destabilizing countries around the world. You have to agree with that, Rakesh, which is why you're leaving Hong Kong and you're going to
No, it's not why I'm leaving Hong Kong. Not at all. I just had a bad tenant who refused to pay her rent.
Okay.
So back to stay in my house.
I bet Putin was behind it, but I'm simply saying, no, those countries are so in chaos. And then look, let's not even start with Iran, because Iran is around out there, doing all kinds of things. And frankly, it seems to me that the whole notion of international world peace is that we get together and we just say, stop fooling around, guys.
That's what I'm saying. You see, if you discount the nation concept right from the beginning and just talk about peoples, first of all, you can be like Costa Rica, one of the richest or the best standard of living in Central America, because they don't have an army.
See,
they don't have an army. They're so close to the United States. Why can't the United States? It's no longer. They have already lost their economic superiority to other countries.
The United States.
Yes.
We are the world's largest economy.
Only in your dreams. Purchasing power parity is where it stands. What a loaf of bread costs in the United States and what it costs in another, say, a country like India, if you equalize the purchasing power, then you lost out to other countries in 2013, 2013, 7 years ago.
Okay, well, hang on. I can go to the store right now and I can buy a loaf of bread for $1. What does a loaf of bread cost in India?
I don't know because I haven't been there recently. But I'll tell you, roughly it's about 30 rupees. which is half a dollar.
Okay, well, it's probably not good quality bread. What is it? Not?
That's a good one.
Yeah.
And the doctor says that bread is not good for you anyway.
Yeah. Thanks for the backup. But America has not lost its hegemony. And Sasha, look, you're an investor. As an investor, which economy do you look to? Is it that the United States is so out of the ballgame that we've lost all power and prestige? Or is it that Rakesh just needs some remedial education?
No, I'm just saying this. I'll ask you one question. All of the Super 6 companies that Sasha is very fond of investing in, why are they parking their money outside the US?
To avoid paying tax.
Such a good economy, why are they parking their money outside the US, apart from tax?
No, for them it is all taxes, and they're parking it in Ireland. Aren't they parking it in Ireland, Sasha?
Not at all, because if they were registered in Ireland and then they're subject to 10% tax in Ireland, there is no need to hide the money. But they're all U.S. corporations, so they had divisions. That one division is, say, in China, one is in Ireland, one is in India, perhaps in some other countries. So each of the divisions park their money into that country, and then it reuses it, and then reshuffles it, and then one subsidiary sends money to another subsidiary, but never to United States.
Okay.
So whenever I had many discussions on that subject with Nick, when Nick says that the United States is the mightiest, the biggest economy, or so on, and I'm asking Nick, hold on, wait a sec. It's not United States who is rich and powerful. It's the 6 U.S. corporations who are very rich and powerful and well run, but U.S. has no use of that because they're not paying taxes.
Because, I am outnumbered here. I'm outnumbered. I mean, Rakesh is slinging cheap bread, and you're slinging cheap economic theories.
Okay, Bill, I'm going on your side. U.S. is the most powerful economy. It's the biggest economy. It's the most well-run economy. The U.S. products are the best in the world. But the truth is, apart joking, the truth is that U.S. military equipment, although it's very expensive, but this is second to none. And therefore, it's a big part of U.S. exports. That's why U.S. needs General Dynamics, General Motors, General Electric, and all the other generals. This is why we are all praying that at least for one day, September 21st,
I have to call a timeout. And that's because we're about out of time. But I do know somebody that is just about to come on board who will help us at least shuffling our money around the globe, and that is Branden with Travel Tuesdays. So let us just say hello to Branden. Branden,
hello, Branden.
Hello, hi everyone. This is the ultimate travel day. I feel like I'm outside of Starbucks because my internet crapped out. So we're actually traveling today on Travel Tuesdays.
Fantastic. So this is what we've been talking about, and then we're going to turn the show over to you. But right now, we ended up with how major companies are hiding their cash around the world. Do you think they need big planes for that, or can they just use a deposit, electronic deposit?
Well, they could probably just file an LLC with a registered agent anywhere, and they don't need to worry about actually going to those countries. That's the nice part of being a big corporation.
Okay. Well, welcome, Branden. It is your Travel Tuesdays. I believe we have your intro, and let me see if we actually have them out there. Give me a couple seconds, and then we'll go. But welcome, and it's Travel Tuesdays with Branden Stewart. Roll the video. Let's see. Hang on. Wow. So anyway, how else are you guys doing? We're just getting there. Nope. You're best of travel, aren't you?
My name's Branden. I'm a world traveler, foodie, and YouTuber. Together, you and I will find the best travel hacks, tips, and best places to explore. Join me as we find new adventures together, live only on IBM.tv.
Okay, Branden. Branden, you all set? Okay. Well, Rakesh and Sasha, we are waiting for Branden. So he's having some challenges today. To our audience, Branden is the ultimate traveler. Apparently, there were some technical issues with his service at the home, so he went traveling to Starbucks to pick up a Wi-Fi link. So in the meantime, how about we give Branden a helping hand until we hear from him again? And let's talk. Branden, are you there?
Hello.
Yes.
I am. Can you
Yes, we can hear you.
hear
Part.
me?
Yes. Okay. You want to go ahead and start, Branden?
Maybe he wants, but he can't.
Yeah, maybe he wants, but he can't. Well, why don't we take a moment and Rakesh.
Yeah, I was thinking about Starbucks, the place where Branden is. It is such a wonderful export of the United States. I love a Starbucks. It's out here in Hong Kong. It's there in New Zealand. It's such a wonderful standard bearer of the United States. Good quality coffee and food wherever you go, wherever you travel. These are the lovely companies. There are many things of the USA. Microsoft originally started in USA. You just name it, all those super six companies. They all started in the USA. Why are graduates from India running to the USA for jobs in these companies? It's a tribute to the greatness of USA. Don't get me wrong. I do not say that USA is not great.
May I ask you one question?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, Starbucks is a company listed on New York Stock Exchange, and as such, it's really benefiting its actions, its cafes around the world, and coffee and everything else benefits shareholders of these particular corporations. How people who are being evicted from their apartments can benefit from the beauty and the wonderful coffee of Starbucks? You tell me, please.
Okay, well,
I don't know what's happening in the US, but out here in Hong Kong, the Starbucks doesn't do any funny activities like that.
No. It's nothing to do with Starbucks. What I'm saying is that whatever wonderful things Starbucks is doing, benefiting shareholders of this particular company, not United States of America. This is what I'm trying to do, and it's very frustrating when people think that United States is the biggest and the richest and the mightiest country because we have Microsoft, Apple, and Google, and Nvidia, and Starbucks, and whatever else. But it benefits shareholders of those corporations. The massive class of people who are absolutely dislocated. They are not part of the society. They're not benefiting from all those wonderful companies. They are being, as we speak, evicted from their apartments.
Well, no, Sasha, that's not quite true. We have a moratorium on evictions that was issued by the Center for Disease Control under their emergency authority. So evictions have been put on hold until the end of the year. Two.
It's a temporary thing. What's going to happen next January, please?
Okay, well, when we get to next January, hopefully we'll have a vaccine and we'll have an administration, and then we'll move forward. But it seems
it will disappear somehow, miraculously.
Sasha, you are a very good debater because I know you're a great chess player, and you're moving pieces. So let me move a piece along here, and that is two things. One, I want to introduce another new guest to our show, and thank God, Mark, welcome. Great haircut, but more importantly, now we are balanced. We have two Americans, and Mark, they've been beating me up here. However, I do want to do a couple of things. First, our theme this hour is traveling. which should be a nice and easy thing. But I do want to finish up with one of Sasha's points. Sasha, I think at the end of the day, I mean, to the extent that corporate exports from the United States may not necessarily contribute to the social benefit collectively, but fundamentally, that's not their mission. And so we should not be creating a false link between elevating people and what corporate responsibilities are. So, checkmate, Sasha.
Bill, have I ever implied that it's a fault of these corporations in what they're doing? Absolutely not. Never. In fact, I'm shareholder of a few of those corporations, and I support 100% everything what they're doing.
Well, Mark, I'm going to get you in, but Rakesh, go first, and then Mark, save me. Rakesh, please.
My 2 pennies worth is that if nothing, they at least add to the brand value of the United States.
Okay, fine.
If nothing else. But I think that there has to be a hard look, and that can come by acknowledging the problems that are there in the United States as to why these corporations, being American corporations to start with, are not benefiting the American people. And that will come by recognizing, first understanding that we have a problem. If you keep saying that, we're the biggest economy and nobody's anywhere nearby, you are not recognizing the problem. China has beaten you by purchasing power parity 7 years ago.
Okay, but right now we're still number one.
You've got to recognize that problem and then fix it, for God's sake. We're all on your side. I'm on everybody's side because I believe in one world.
Yes,
and I've repeatedly said this on the show. I believe in one world. I don't believe in the nation concept.
Okay. Well, then there you have it, and I love it. We're inching closer to world peace, step by step. Now, Mark Lee, tell us about travel and how we come together.
Well, that was one way we can come together. There's no doubt about that we can go to different countries and visit the different countries. Then we can learn more about the cultures that we don't necessarily know about, because that's one of the things we need to do more of. I'm actually guilty of not doing enough world travel, and I need to do more world travel myself, because like I said, I've been to just a few countries outside of the United States, but we need to do a lot more world travel. We also need to go out and visit even some parts of the United States that we're in and everything. But to come to Rashish's point and everything, I actually had a very interesting guest on yesterday. It was actually a gentleman that had written a book about Trump and has called it The Colossal Poison. And one of the things that he argued is that we're no longer number one. He's actually arguing that in addition to everything about Trump and everything, he's actually arguing that we have fallen to China, and he's even thinking there might be a couple of other countries. So he's actually thinking that we're now a not quite a second-class power, but that we're like a number 2 or number 3.
Please. Yeah, I have to say stop. You're hurting me here, Mark. You're hurting me here. No, all we've done is, look, we just sat down for a minute, but we're still number one. And anybody else that thinks that they're going to be running ahead doesn't know the United States. I would not bet against the United States, but it pains me to hear all this. However, Mark, where have you traveled to recently?
Well, like I said, I've done enough traveling, but right now, because of the virus, I'm doing good if I could travel outside of Durham. So I have gone to Rocky Mount, which is another city here, because that's where Mom lives at, and I've gone to a couple of places within North Carolina. But before that, like last year, before this whole coronavirus thing came, so not this New Year's, but the New Year's before, I was in Las Vegas, so I did get a chance to travel some places around North America, and I've been, of course, to other places around here and everything. But in terms of my world travel, I hate to say it, but I am guilty of only having been to a couple of the Caribbean nations and things of that nature, which are off our coast because of a cruise and things of that. And as a baby, I mean, as a little infant, I went to Turkey because my dad was stationed in the Air Force. So I did get a chance to go to Turkey as an infant. But I need to get over there. I even want to visit where Sashi is. I want to come to Canada because I've met some friends from Canada, and it looks like a very interesting place.
Oh,
whether
no,
it's
I understand that. Right?
Alberta or wherever, and I want to go to where Rakesh is.
I know, Mark. Hang on, because we got to get everybody involved here, okay? So, because I was just trying to establish your bona fides. Now, Rakesh, the countries that you've traveled to, just the bona fides, because then I'm going to go to Slash and ask them the same thing. So, you've been to Hong Kong, New Zealand, India, and where else, Rakesh?
Rwanda, Burundi, Congo, Indonesia, Italy, Netherlands, France, and Switzerland, and England, and the USA, of course.
Wait. With only one passport? I mean, because really,
one passport. I mean, I've had an Indian citizenship when I started with, and then in 2002 I migrated to New Zealand. I think 2006 I got a New Zealand passport, and I've been traveling 27 different countries.
Okay.
Okay,
no, Mark, we got to go to Sasha. Sasha, your countries. Which countries and where have you traveled?
Okay, it's nearly 50 countries. You want in alphabetical order, or what would you like? It's almost all countries in Europe, except some Balkan countries. I've never been to Serbia, Bosnia, because it's unstable region, and there were some wars there, here and there. In Asia, it's Southeast Asia mostly. I was in Hong Kong, I was in Singapore, I was in Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, and India, of course. Yeah, those countries. I had a stopover in Kuwait. I spent about 20 minutes in Kuwait airport a day before the invasion of Saddam Hussein invaded.
I was going to say, before the war, during the war, so you got stuck in the airport during the war.
No, I didn't stuck. I was there a last night before the invasion. So we had a stopover at the airport. We stepped out with my wife, and look, it's a giant, it's a huge airport, absolutely empty. There are no people, there's nothing. It's just absolutely empty elephant. But it was interesting. So we went back to the plane and just continued. We flew from Singapore to Amsterdam. So stopover. Now, stopover on the way to Singapore from Amsterdam was in New Delhi. But on the way back, it stops at Kuwait. And I didn't know about that.
Okay, Mark, you were going to join in.
Yes, and what I was going to chime in and say and everything is that in addition to the few stops that I've had travel-wise, I have been fortunate, and I think you have as well, Bill, to actually know people from other countries. So even though I have not had the chance to go to their countries, I've actually had the pleasure, even before IBM.TV. Now I'm learning of some places that I didn't even have friends at in the past. But in the past, because of being around a university setting, being involved in culture and things of that nature, I've had friends from various African countries like Senegal, Kenya, definitely some of the Asian countries, India, the European countries like Denmark and France, and a number of other places. So just around the world, even some friends from Australia, New Zealand, and things of that nature. So even though I have not had the pleasure yet of traveling to those countries, I would argue that I have learned a lot about the international community because of having international friends. So sometimes if you don't get the chance to travel because of economy and other things, you do have the opportunity to meet people from around the world, and that's another way that you can actually have that travel experience, even if you can't actually travel to those countries.
No, and you're absolutely right. And one place you can do that is right here on IBM TV. We have a multitude of programs and a multitude of producers from around the world. That I think we can all agree on. But, you know, this idea, I can't believe that America is somehow slipping. No, my friends. It's we're still here, and we're a great place to visit as well. So let me ask this. Let me go around. I just want to hear a quick thing. What was your favorite place, Rakesh?
I visited Japan recently, last year, late last year, early this year, and I found it really, really interesting. It's hard to say that is a favorite place, because there are different aspects of things that you see. They were not, the people were not that friendly, but the place was lovely. Some people were wonderful. Technology interests me.
Did you just say
like,
people weren't friendly?
But they were not very friendly, no.
You see that? Just like LaGuardia. You guys are getting mad at our airports. Go ahead. I'm just checking.
But I would say my favorite, if at all you could call it favorite, was Switzerland. You know, they have a beautiful. The people were very. I visited Zurich, and because I have a cousin who stays there, and my mother wanted to see him when we were doing this art tour of Europe, and I found the place where we stayed. They had a beautiful blend of friendliness without being over familiar, you know, and the place was beautifully maintained. The discipline was fantastic. You could not but admire those people, you know. It is, if there ever was a favorite, I would say Switzerland would be my favorite. But I still thought New Zealand was better.
Okay, that's why you're moving there, Sasha.
I've lived in New Zealand for 11 years already.
I know. I'm just pulling your chain, Rakesh. Okay. Sasha, go right.
It's very hard to argue about Switzerland, and I've been in Switzerland many times, and I think every city in Switzerland. The last time I was driving actually from Italy, from Lake Como, I was driving a beautiful road to a little place called Saint Moritz, I think, and it was the end of June, and believe it or not, it was very cold there. So we spent one day and run down, but on another shore now through Lugano, and we went back to Italy. And I said to my wife, no more experiments. Down to Italy, Sanremo, spent a couple of days there, days. And from Sanremo all the way to Monaco. And Monaco is another place. Of course, it's a dream, and I would go there anytime. And I love in Italy. I love the Amalfi Coast. Incredible. Italy, all incredible. There are so many fantastic places. Never mind Rome, Florence, Venice, Turin, Naples. I don't know even where to begin. The Amalfi Coast is a great place.
Okay, Mark, what is your favorite place? It doesn't have to be international. It can be domestic. What is the favorite place that you've gone to that you visited?
Well, there are a couple places that I love, and actually, ironically, they're all on the East Coast because I haven't visited the West Coast enough yet either. But I am actually a big fan, and some people may be surprised by this, but part of that is because of the culture. But I'm a big fan of New York City and where you are, DC. And then another place that I really love, and I haven't been there recently, but I went there a few times with some friends, is Miami is a great international city. So I love Miami. I love going down there. You got the beach and you got all of that. And of course, there's just all that rich culture of a lot of different kind of varieties. I mean, there's, of course, the Latin culture, and there are a number of other places as well. So those are kind of my three favorite cities, New York, DC, and Miami. But even to come back to one of the other points that folks were making, by the way, thanks for the compliment on the haircut and everything. So I appreciate that you noticed. And also, I did go to my barber, and when I was at my barber, I ran into a friend of mine, a longtime friend, who is an international traveler. She's got an activist in the world, so she's actually been to like China and Cuba. Her husband, I think, is from one of the Caribbean nations, and she's got some friends around Africa, so I know she's been to Africa and everything. But I think that one of the things she said that was really interesting was, I can't remember if it was her child or her grandchild, but she was at a women's conference in China. So that first step was getting ready to happen. She bolted from the conference. So like I said, even though she was at the conference and really enjoying all that was going on in China with the women's conference, she wanted to see that experience of that child's first walk. So like I said, she got the heck out of Dodge because she wanted to have that family moment. Because a lot of times, even if you're on international travel, you want to have that family moment. So when she shared that story, I thought that was a real touching story. And it was also good seeing my friend Karen Hayes, who's a real estate agent here in the area, and I haven't seen her for a while. So it was good catching up with her and hearing how her and her husband and others were doing that. Because, you know, as you often talk about, is a wonderful place.
I know, Mark, but we began by asking you what was your favorite place. And so we're a little off. So, I mean, do you have a favorite? I mean, New York City, Washington, D.C., and Miami. Those are your top three?
Those are my top three.
Okay. Now, where would you go to just relax? Not sightsee, not explore, not learn, just to relax. Rakesh, where would you go?
I'd go to a city in India called Goa.
Tell us about it. How do you spell it?
It's actually a state, and it's spelled Goa. It's a former Portuguese colony. Very relaxed, beautiful beaches, and I haven't been there since at least about 2 decades. But the last time I went there, it was really beautiful. Great food and a nice local wine.
Okay. Let me just note this, that Branden has sent us. He said that he would go to Menorca, Spain, just to relax. Now, Menorca, Spain. Oh, is that you, Branden? Oh, I thought we had Branden. Sasha, where would you go? No sightseeing, no business, no nothing, just to relax. Where would
must be Aruba.
Aruba.
Yeah.
Okay. And Mark, where would you go?
Well, I have a friend who's a professor over at North Carolina Central University, and he has been a few times, not recently, but like maybe a decade or two ago, to Belize. And he tells me that Belize is a wonderful country. So that's on my list of places to go. And it's definitely someplace that's very relaxing with the coast. So if I can get the money to go, Belize is on my list. So I think I'd be heading to either Belize, or I've also heard good things about Costa Rica. But I think Belize is at the top of that list.
Okay. Well, Branden, via a live chat, is also suggesting to us the Bahamas. And he makes an important point. His important point is that the Bahamas is one of the few places Americans can currently get in, given the worldwide crisis. So what do you guys think of the Bahamas? I've never been. How about you guys? Never?
Never been to Bahamas. Just been to the east of United States. That's Washington, New York, and Chicago, Philadelphia. And that's about it. I have dreams of going to the west side, and perhaps if I can make it even to Yosemite, but somewhere. I have a friend, a former classmate in San Francisco, and so I was hoping to just pop and see them, and then head on to Yosemite National Park, see the Grand Canyon, and then get back to New Zealand.
Bill, I was watching the chat as well, and Branden actually mentioned that Puerto Rico is popular too, but they do require a COVID negative year within 72 hours. So a COVID negative test, I think, is what he actually meant, within 72 hours of your arrival there. And that is actually someplace that I have gone. That cruise went to Puerto Rico, it went to the U.S. Virgin Islands, it went to the Grand Turks, and I did find all of those places very relaxing and very wonderful. So that would also be on my list and everything. One of the things that I found interesting when I went on the cruise is that for whatever reasons, I did not, and I need to update or get one. I didn't have the passport, but with just a birth certificate and other things, there are places within the U.S. that you can travel without necessarily having your full passport, because they are U.S. territories, and even off the waters, you're still in U.S. territory. So I did learn that just with my birth certificate and ID, I was able to travel and get off the boat and still be able to travel without that passport. That is what I would need to go see Rakesh. I don't think I needed to go to see Sasha in Canada. I think I do still need the passport for Canada, but you don't necessarily need it for off the oceans in U.S. properties.
Right.
These days, you won't make to Canada with or without passports anyway. So it's not very important. Also, I've heard that only 18% of Americans have international passports. Most of the people even don't have them. And speaking about Bahamas, I was so many times in Nassau, Bahamas, probably. And of course, it must be Atlantis. That's where I always stay. It's a fantastic place. Actually, it could be even higher on my top of the list than Aruba, except one thing. Aruba has very predictable weather year-round. No hurricanes, absolutely nothing. And there is no heat. There is a very nice breeze. The temperature is 28, 30 Celsius. So it's really fantastic. In Bahamas, sometimes it's so hot that you can't even go outside of your hotel room. They have fantastic casinos, so you don't want to go outside anyway. So it's very close toss between Aruba and
Yeah.
Branden raised some other interesting points too. One, he said Bali's been up and coming in the last 5 years. Visa on arrival is popular as well. And then he said Puerto Rico and other U.S. territories are some of the few places that will take a passport card. And then the last thing he said was that Canada started requiring passports at the border and rejected driver's license in the early 2000s. And I actually have an interesting story about that. A friend of mine that was living across from me at the apartment that I was living at that time in downtown Durham, he and his then wife went to Canada. They went and traveled. They, unfortunately, I was doing pet sitting. They had a cat and a dog, so I was doing pet sitting. And I remember a very frantic call that I got because they had gone across the border with whatever paperwork they had. They had unfortunately tried to come back across the border the other way into the United States without that particular card. So I remember frantically looking around their house, trying to find their passport and their papers and making photocopies of that so that I could get that to them. And then they were able to get back to the United States. But I do remember I think they were gone for maybe a week or so. And I remember taking care of their cat and dog that they had at that time. Like I said, they were in a house literally across from my apartment, and I was sitting there going like frantically looking for stuff.
No, Mark. Listen, I really appreciate the cat and dog story, but come on, really.
No, it was a passport story. It was really about the passport.
Do I have to hear all of it? I mean, seriously, the cat, the dog, the copier, and then the garbage guy. Listen, this is Travel Tuesdays. People are trying to get away from this trouble. So we have Aruba, and then we have a state in India. And Rakesh, I wanted to ask you, that's really got to be a special place because India has 1.3 billion people. And so trying to find a quiet place in a nation of 1.3 billion is quite the trick.
No, not necessarily, because a lot of the people go where the jobs are in the big cities. The rest of India, there's a lot of India which is actually has a very low population. The last time I went to India, I traveled with my wife to a place called Mussoorie, which is absolutely a dream in the hills, at the foothills of the Himalayas. And it was just such a marvelous place. I had a classmate staying there in an American school. He worked in an American school. I've been there since the last 145 years. So it's a place where a lot of American students go and study. I'm sure you haven't even heard of it, but it's a very well reputed school in India.
No. Okay, which school? And it's
a school called Woodstock. Woodstock in a place called Mussoorie. It's really, I know there's a famous music festival, but this school has been there probably long before the music festival. Last 145 years it's been in India, and it's very, very difficult to run a foreign school in India because of all the the restrictions and rules and regulations that the government has. But they've been doing it for a long, long time, even before independence, before we got independence. So because we've been independent only for the last 75, 80 years, not even 80 years. So it's my classmate happened to work there, and so we went there. And it was really a beautiful place in the hills.
Yeah, I can say that I've traveled quite a bit around the United States. But what I found now is that if I can just find a spot with a chair and I can sit down in the sun with a book, I really don't care where I'm sitting because I'm there in the moment with a book. And, the other places are nice to visit and things of that nature. But, for me, it's just quiet time. However, I have another question for our panel, and we're going to do this kind of round robin again, okay? Right. Your favorite food that you have tasted or eaten while traveling, Sasha.
It's a tough question because there is so great food everywhere. It's very difficult to really concentrate on something. Okay, we're in.
You want to?
I had a fantastic meal, by the way, in Hong Kong. We stayed in Kowloon in a nice, very nice hotel. I think Eaton's probably, if I remember correctly. And we asked where is the best Peking duck in Hong Kong, and they gave me the address and telephone, and we made the reservation, and we went there. Of course, I don't remember the name of the restaurant. It was a fairly big restaurant, and we were only two white people in all restaurants. All the rest were basically Chinese people, and we had about 8 waitresses who were serving us, and it was so impressive. The food was delicious, and if I would go there, I would definitely go to that restaurant one more time.
Okay. Mark, and then we'll go to you, Rakesh.
Oh yeah, definitely. There's a couple of great restaurants that are international restaurants right here in Durham. One of them has been around for seems like forever, but I am a big fan of Kenyan food. So the Palace would be a place that I would definitely go to and everything. So like I said, that's a restaurant here. There's also one that is called Gorsha, which is Ethiopian food. The one thing about Ethiopian food that I had to learn that was different is that a lot of times it's finger food, literally. So you have to like roll it up and eat it up. And there was actually a great Ethiopian restaurant, and I don't know if it's still around, but it's where you are in DC that existed in upstairs, and I don't remember the name of it. There was a great Ethiopian restaurant around, I want to say around that Adams Mart area or somewhere around that area. So
Adams Morgan, that would have been on 18th Street. I think that one's actually been replaced by a bar, but there is a nice one right around the corner. It's called Mama Aisha's, and that. But you're right. Getting used to no utensils is tough. They bring the food out. It's family style, and there are no utensils. So you're absolutely right about that one. Rakesh.
To me, you will be very surprised. I had some Nile perch in Kigali. The Nile perch from Lake Victoria, cooked in a Belgian style in Kigali with chips.
Okay, what does Belgian style mean for those who don't know? Because I don't know.
It's something. It's like French, but not a bit different in the sauces and something. Because it was a Belgian colony, Rwanda. Most of the chefs there are used to Belgian cooking, so he was an African, a Rwandan cook. And he made the most delicious Belgian perch with chips, and it was, and of course they had the Heineken beer, which is made locally. So it was, it's still something brings water to my mouth even today.
Then you know that was a good meal, right, Sasha?
Well, first of all, Heineken is a Dutch beer, as far as I remember. And in Belgium, actually, they have the most fantastic, incredible beers that are nowhere else. And I buy it sometimes here in Canada, but a few years ago, you had to order it. It wasn't really readily available here, but now it is. Now, many years ago, I was in Brussels for a few days with my wife. And we had actually one American lawyer who was resettled in Brussels and is practicing there. And we were his guests, and we were getting around with him. And he took us in one very good restaurant, which I don't remember the name. And he ordered absolutely delicious food. And he asked if he knows the difference between or actually, I asked him what's the difference between Belgian food and French food. So he said that Belgian food is a French food with the German portions inside.
Sounds great. Sasha, I got to make a comment to you. You talked about Heineken. That actually is one of my favorite beers and everything when I do the drinking of beer and everything. But it's really interesting sometimes as we're talking travel and everything, when you talk to people that are from different countries about the beer of their country, because a lot of times we're thinking that it's a great beer because it's an international beer. I'm thinking of like Foster's, which I think is from Australia, or even Tuska, which is from Kenya. But oftentimes when you talk to people about these beers and we're just all excited because they're exotic beers, a lot of times they look at us like, no, that's not our best beer, and that's not the one that we actually are big fans of. So it's just kind of funny that a lot of times, like, there are American beers that we're not that popular or that we like that much because they are lower quality, and that's the way that they think of those beers that we like because they are international. So I was just wondering if Rakesh and Sasha have had that experience as well, because I know that I've gone to countries, tried their beer, tried their wine, tried different other things, and they're looking at me like, no, that's not the right one.
It is certainly the same experience.
Domestic shams. We'll call them sham beers that are popular around the world but don't represent the home country.
Yeah, but the Heineken beer in Rwanda is actually made in a factory in Rwanda using the water from Lake Kivu, which actually has volcanic content. So it is. I've tasted Heineken in other countries, and it's a bit different.
I would say so.
It's got a different taste. Oh, by the way, Branden is still continuing the conversation with it and everything. He said that Phuket is a great place for relaxing and water sport if you're looking for beautiful beaches. So he definitely made that comment as well. He was also joking with us because he said that this is like reverse Q&A. And he said the best food empanadas served by Abaladas with carts is in Colombia. So he also said he also is a big fan of fresh lobster in Portland, Maine. So he argued that that's top notch. And he asked whether anyone was a fan of haggis from Scotland. And I may be mispronouncing that. And he says he has a whole travel guide available on his channel for traveling to Belgium, as if only he could tune in. So he was making those kind of jokes about what's going on because of our technical difficulties and everything. A real quick question, because Bill was giving me a hard time about this earlier. So I just want to know and everything, but both, and this is for everybody, including Bill, because he's giving me a hard time about the pet story. But have any of you, as you've done your international travel, tried to take your animals with you? Because I was always curious as to whether it works. I know I've seen people that have tried to bring their dogs or their cats with them, or do you just leave those animals at home, as my friend did when they were in Canada? Or has any of you tried to take the animals with you, and what was that experience like?
No, I didn't try to be. I had my sister had a lot of dogs, but I didn't have any dogs of my own. So no, sorry.
Okay, Sasha, you ever tried to travel internationally with pets?
No, and have no plans.
Okay, all right. That is interesting.
Well, we'll just have to find out from Branden what the best way to do that is. Because, like I said, I felt sorry for the animals because sometimes they want to go on the trip too. But that's just my thoughts. But Bill, have you ever tried to take a pet with you, even if it was a local trip?
Oh yeah. My dogs always traveled with me, regardless. Wherever I went, they went with. They're no longer with us. But yeah, it was it's always interesting and always fun. I had a Great Dane named Bonnie, and that was that was an interesting experience. But she was great, outside of that. So after this pandemic is over in about 12, 24, 36 months, or at least handled, where is the first place that you would go to?
I would like to go to St. Petersburg.
Okay. Sasha?
Yes, I would go. I would go first to Riga. I would take a cruise ship from, say, Copenhagen, going all these northern cities like Stockholm, which I love. Then we would go to Helsinki and St. Petersburg and Riga, and probably Gdansk in Poland, and then back to Copenhagen.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where I would go.
Okay, Mark.
If money was no issue, and of course money oftentimes is an issue, I think two of the places I want to go visit are actually in South America. So I want to go visit Costa Rica, and I also want to go visit Brazil, and maybe even Brazil during like the carnival time and things of that nature, being a big cultural person. So I would love to go to one of those two countries and everything. So Brazil and Costa Rica would be on my list. And I actually want to go visit where Sasha is. I want to go visit Canada. I've actually got a friend that's Canadian. That's one of my coworkers, and they're always telling me about the different provinces and how great it is. And I've got something that I just learned recently that, we're using this platform, and I was fortunate to have them as a guest yesterday, but we're using the platform of StreamYard and everything, StreamYard, I should say. The founders of that actually went to school in Canada, which I did not realize until I had Dana out of their marketing department yesterday, and me and Kim were interviewing her. But the founders of this lovely platform that we use on IBM.TV went to Victoria, I believe was the college that they went to on the western side of Canada, since the company is now based in Oregon. But they have some Canadian connections.
Okay. Now,
Victoria is a beautiful city in Canada, in British Columbia.
Well, Sasha, speaking of Canada, I read a report that I don't know if it's a sign of the end of days or it's a statement about what kind of year 2020 has been. But it is my understanding that Taco Bell in Canada will now be selling wine along with chupalas and their burritos. Have you heard that?
No, I haven't. I'm not a big fan of Taco Bells.
Well, maybe you'd be a big fan if you had some wine. Maybe it makes the food go together.
Well, but if they do sell some wines, it means other restaurants probably also will.
I know.
Toronto has
Taco
fantastic restaurants.
But Sasha, you're an investor, and Taco Bell and KFC are pretty much the same company. So aren't you at least a fan of them from a business standpoint? Because, like I said, that seems to me that might be, if they're going to be adding wine, that might be helping their stock rise. So I don't know, but it might help the stock rise.
And the wine is paired because they
tough to say.
No, they specifically formulated. They have 3 different versions that are specifically by the experts, winemakers, to pair with cheese. Now, we all know Taco Bell has cheese, but these wines are meant to go with cheese. And they have 3 varieties, and they're going to be selling them at the drive-thru in Taco Bell in Canada. So I'm not sure where to put them. I was a little jealous because
you know what? Taco Bell is so insignificant presence in Canada. I mean, if I would think, where is Taco Bell? Let's see if I would now get in a car. I wouldn't even know where to try to find a Taco Bell, really. I have no idea. There are probably some Taco Bells here and there, but you have to find them, actually.
Okay. Rakesh and then Mark, what do you think of the notion of increasing tourism by selling wine at Taco Bell?
To be honest, I have never tasted food at Taco Bell because we don't have them in New Zealand, nor in Hong Kong.
No, but
but the idea to me, I like wine because I have New Zealand has a lot of wine. So the idea to me is a good idea. I mean, I'd be happy to try out something different. I'm quite, as long as it's not something ghastly, in terms of food, I'm open. If it's some, I wouldn't eat wildlife, anything banned by CITES. I wouldn't eat that, but I'm open. And cheese and wine, always favorites.
Why not on a drive-through basis? Mark, would you go to Taco?
Well, like I said, I'd be at least open to that possibility of checking out the wine and everything. But you call it the end of time message and everything, but it's really been interesting because one of the things that I've noticed is that a lot of our American companies, when they go to these different countries, they do add things from the menu. So I don't know that if you go to McDonald's, you're always going to get just a regular burger. You might get some things that are more native to that particular country, because I think that that's something that they do regularly, is that they do add things that are more along the lines of whatever their kosher meals are, things of that nature. When you go to these different countries, that they try to add some of their culture to it. Am I correct, Rakesh?
That is absolutely right. The vegetarian burger that you get from McDonald's in India has got a really delicious patty, a vegetarian patty. Absolutely delicious. I've never tasted such a good patty, even in Indian restaurants. So I must say, hats off to McDonald's. McDonald's, of all people, they have a delicious patty. You can ask them not to put cheese, and it's even better without the cheese.
Oh, wow.
Yes, it is so good. And that is something about American companies that at least some American companies, successful ones like McDonald's, that I appreciate. That they're market sensitive, and I think if I believe that America is going through a low phase, but it will come back, and it will come back. I believe that.
I wore you down, didn't I?
No.
Of course you wore him down, but I
didn't.
never said that.
It's not you. I look at the fundamentals. The fundamentals that I see. With companies. In the markets that I've experienced, I think that if they have a company which is fundamentally built on beef patties, if they can adapt to a market like India, which is largely vegetarian, then it shows a flexibility in management which has to be respected. I am a business management graduate, and so I know how difficult it is to make these changes in a huge multinational company, and I respect multinationals that are agile enough to do so.
Okay. Well,
I'm just going to echo Brandon's comments real quick. Brandon said that McDonald's in France serves beer and pastry, so I might be running over there to get those pastries and everything. He also said that macarons are available to go there, and he said that where you are, Sasha, Canada is underrated. It's a very pretty place, and he also warned me to never travel with pets. It'll always make them more uncomfortable than staying at home, and internationally, they're more at risk for disease and infection. So definitely that was kind of his advice about folks that might want to travel with their friendly pets and all of that. But definitely he was saying that that McDonald's over there in France has got that beer. So all of us that are beer fans, we might have to run over there to the McDonald's in France when we go visit.
Okay. Well, there we have
The only way you travel with pets, if your pet really wants to travel somewhere, and for practical purposes, not to be alone, he will take you with him on the trip. That should be considered as an option, for sure.
I always wondered whether or not I could get away with claiming that my dog was a sightseeing dog, or somehow help me out otherwise. As an attempt, because you see it all the time when they've got their dogs in the seat next to them. I pay for an extra seat and say he helps me because I can't see. I bet people do that all the time. I once heard a story about a woman who claimed that her pig was her comfort animal and therefore should fly with her on the plane. Amazing.
No, I had a friend that wrote a book on her wacky journeys as a flight attendant, and she actually mentioned the comfort pig as one that went on the trip with her. She also talked about an animal, and you might get a kick out of this, Rakesh, since you're in that part of the world and everything right now, because I think of like New Zealand, Australia as being very close to each other and everything. But there was apparently somebody that tried to take as a comfort animal or as their CNI animal and everything, a kangaroo. So apparently that's one of the things that she learned about in her story was that somebody was trying to bring along, and I think they actually got away with it because there was a picture of the kangaroo on the plane. So they've actually tried to take the kangaroo with them as well. So I have to go to that book about the wacky things that she learned as a flight attendant. I think she's still a flight attendant living here in North Carolina, but I'm sitting there going like, you're going to try to bring a kangaroo as your CNI or comfort animal. Those are very big animals. So I'm just scared about. How would y'all take it if you were on a plane and you saw a kangaroo there next to you? I would be mad.
Wait.
How would you handle it if you saw a kangaroo?
No, Mark. Let's make it more realistic. What if you saw a comfort kangaroo, a comfort pig, a little chihuahua? What else do you think that we could actually get on a plane?
Somebody had a pet peacock. Okay,
a pet peacock. Okay. Before, when you got on the plane, you decided, oh my God, what airline am I flying? So, Mark, at that point, would it qualify as Noah's Ark?
Good point. It could be Noah's Ark at that point. So, like I said, and then you might be panicking because you might be thinking to yourself, Noah, at the time that he was living, it was all about sea travel. I don't think we even had airplanes at that time. So some folks, when they saw all those animals, they might be panicking because, as you jokingly called it, they might be like, oh, this really is the end times and everything, because this plane is going to take us who knows where.
That would force world peace, which we were talking about earlier.
No doubt. That would definitely be world peace for sure. And that might be some of the things that we need to do is find jokes and other things to kind of like help with that world peace. I think that personally, if some of our world leaders would just actually enjoy humor and tell jokes to each other, we might actually have world peace a lot quicker than we've got it right now.
Okay, you know what I'd like to do? I'd like to pivot for a moment, if I may. And I would just want to say thank you for being our guests and a part of IBM TV, International Broadcast Media, around the world, 122 countries, and they are listening to us. Imagine. So what we have now is that we are coming upon the top of the hour. We have about 4 minutes left. And what I'd like to do to set up our viewers for the rest of their days, their mornings, their afternoons, or their evenings, pleasant thoughts. And go around and say what we plan to accomplish today or what we have accomplished today. Now, Rakesh, I know it's the end of your day, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Tell us about your day. Was it a good day or was it a bad day?
It was a good day. Did achieve some things that I wanted to. I had a class in the morning, which was quite nice. I have another class day after tomorrow, and I will be preparing for that tomorrow.
I'll do that tomorrow because I'm tired right now, right? We are
12 o'clock.
Okay. Now, Sasha, what do you have planned for the day? Something that, make everybody feel good.
So far, this day is developing very good. We had very thoughtful conversations here at IBM TV. And I'm watching stocks as well. And
okay, are you up or down right now?
I'm up, and hopefully all people are up. If they're following my strategies, they're welcome tomorrow at 1 o'clock to attend our show, and I will discuss it more in depth. What is actually good strategies days for the market, and the rest of the day, I'm planning to watch sports in the evenings, basketball, and there are big games tonight, and so we'll see. So far, everything is good.
We didn't even know that about Sasha. First, we did know that at 1 o'clock tomorrow we have Investing with Sasha. 1 p.m. Follow his strategies. He's up today and he's in it for the long haul, and he's really not worried about corporate responsibility, as he said earlier. But we love you, Sasha, and we didn't know that Sasha, in addition to chess, and he has his chess show on Saturdays, and he has a new guest. You want to tell us about your new guest this Saturday?
Yeah, we have, actually, he is a new old guest. He was already appeared a couple times in our show. He's a professor of mathematics and chess master, Ken Regan, and he's extremely knowledgeable and cheating in chess. And this is one of the things what we are going to discuss. About cheating in chess, and then we'll continue our discussions about chess Olympiads. There are a lot of chess Olympiads actually could be one of the examples of world peace, and there are almost 200 nations.
Nope, I got that. We got to go to Mark.
Well, it's a relaxing day here in North Carolina. The weather is starting to break, so I know at some point I'm going to go out for a walk to enjoy the weather, because we're starting to get more into those 70s and 80s as opposed to those 90s and 100s that we were having some weeks back. So now the weather is starting to be more relaxing. I will definitely go out for a walk. Of course, I'm going to be working on the online dinner party, because we did have the 2 shows that I do on Monday, but the online dinner party is coming your way Wednesday. I think I've got a guest that might be talking about politics, Mr. Greason. I need to finalize that. But Walter Greason has been involved in a lot of things, so I'm having that, and I've got my mystery guests already lined up. Well, at least one of them I do. One of the mystery guests will be somebody from the West, because we've had that mystery guest game, so it'll be somebody from the Wild Wild West. I'm not going to tell you if it's a woman or a man, but somebody from the Wild Wild West, and definitely you should be able to narrow that down, whether that's Wild Bill Hickok or somebody along those lines. That's not who it is, but those Wild Wild West people. And then we'll get somebody, I don't know who yet, but somebody from politics or sports or something like that from South America, because I've had somebody from Europe, I had somebody from Africa, but I have not had a mystery guest, which means that I just flashed their picture after we talked about them and given you clues as to their identity. But I have not had the mystery guest lined up for South America. So I'm going to try to find that one. I already know the picture and the person for the Wild Wild West. So just look for that clue. Play the game. So far, nobody's winning. So even though I'm talking to Lynn and others about trying to get some prizes, nobody wants to claim the prize. So y'all need to watch and try to solve these puzzles that I'm giving y'all, because nobody is doing a good job right now.
Okay. Well, then there you have it. We have Mark's show on Wednesdays at
Wednesday 4 to 7.
Okay. And your title again?
The online dinner party. So like I said, you can come and grab your food and everything while you're sitting there enjoying the games and having the conversation with my guests. But definitely we'll have the dinner party aspect as well.
And you know Mark is ready because he went out and he got the full works done, the hair, the beard, the sash, all cleaned up.
I'm ready for them. So they need to come and join me and everything. I'm glad to know that Sasha is a sports fan. I too am a sports fan. Was glad to see Naomi Osaka won the U.S. Open, and I'm a little nervous because we got 3 teams in the NBA, and the 4th one we will decide today. I went to school with Doc Rivers, so I was really hoping that the Clippers would win, but they're trying to blow the game. So I don't know what's going on. So it's all bets are off.
I know, Mark. I'm out of time. Okay.
Yeah.
So, in any event, listen. Up next is Celebrity Tuesdays. They are on the other link. We want to thank you again for joining us during Travel Tuesdays this hour. We certainly apologize for the modern technology, but we'll get it fixed because we're IBM TV, International Broadcast Media, bringing you the best and the brightest from around the globe, beginning with our gentleman here. So, Sasha has left us, and you guys can join Celebrity Tuesday on the next thread. Thank you on behalf of IBM TV. And Rakesh, I thank you. And Mark Lee, I thank you. And Sasha, I know you're still listening. We love you too. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
You too.